I ask this question. Is this the criminal justice system we want when the lower socioeconomic defendants who are on trial every day in and day out, is this what we want? Prosecutors commenting on their right to remain silent, having narratives, calling them things, facts that don't support the evidence. Do we want this in our criminal? Hey, it's not about Kyle Rittenhouse. It's about our Constitution.
Bob Bianchi, who is also with us, reminder he is a criminal defense lawyer, has been a former prosecutor. What do you see as the key moment in this trial that may have been a tipping point for jurors?
I want to go to that provocation. If he's engaging in unlawful conduct, I'm reading it right now, that provokes others to attack. And then there's a line in there that's very, very important. It indicates that a belief may be reasonable even if mistaken. So when Kyle Rittenhouse gets on the stand, after 3 of the government's witnesses had indicated that he was being chased, they were screaming and yelling at him, hitting him with skateboards, getting kicked in the face by the jump kick man, shots being fired behind him. There were opportunities that he had to use the weapon where the people backed away and he didn't fire the weapon. To all, whether they're on the liberal side or conservative side, the trial lawyers who have ever tried cases, these jury instructions are not that unique. In virtually, I would imagine, every state, given the burden of proof and the presumption of innocence in this country, the prosecution, I know in Jersey, has to disprove self-defense beyond a reasonable doubt to all 12 jurors. How do you do that when you saw no real provocation going on, him not threatening anybody? He's taking care of graffitis, walking around with a medical kit. I think he came off as like a cop wannabe. But in the end analysis, they're the ones pursuing him. Number 2, I was apoplectic, and I believe I was on your show, about the fact that the prosecutor did some things that any lawyer knows that they shouldn't be doing, and clearly is an act of desperation when Rittenhouse was on the witness stand, commented on his post-arrest silence, which in my opinion, the judge wisely waited for this verdict to come out so that was it not guilty, he would not have to rule on it singularly as opposed to let it be with the jury. But if that jury came back and said guilty, he would have to rule on that. That was an egregious, outrageous, and as I said before, when I was the head county prosecutor, he would be going downstairs right out of my office with a bunch of empty boxes to pack his office because he'd be gone. That was completely inappropriate, jeopardized the entire trial for the families of the people whose loved ones were killed, for Rittenhouse, for the judge, the jurors, and the whole court system.
You lose the right to self-defense when you're the one who brought the gun, when you're the one creating the danger, when you're the one provoking other people.
There is a lot for this jury to consider. There's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of movement in the crime scenes because you have 2 separate crime scenes. You have very complex and, in my mind, very convoluted jury charges in the first place. The provocation charge that the judge put in, he gave that bone to the prosecution, but I don't see provocation in any way, shape, or form in this case because under the law, and the jury's going to read it when they see it, he has to be conducting an unlawful activity. And even if he is conducting an unlawful activity, if they escalate force to deadly force, he's allowed to use deadly force in response.
These actions by MSNBC, it seems to suggest, do you want these jurors to be killed by your viewers when this is done?
Yeah, well, listen, like the judge said, you can't underestimate the badness of this particular situation. The media should not and knows better than to be pursuing jurors, to trying to discuss a case with jurors. I mean, it's as bad as releasing the identity of a child rape victim, okay? You just don't do it. And that's why down the road, when you saw the judge rebuking the prosecutor a couple of times and people went after the judge, oh, he's unfair, whatever, which he wasn't, I don't know. It's the same thing here. If it turns out that this is what the investigation reveals and the investigation is ongoing, I'd imagine the judge may haul that person in and take some sort of sanction against them so that it doesn't get repeated by other news outlets down the road in other cases.
Bob, is it possible that the judge, this is all speculation, obviously, if the jury comes back with a guilty verdict on one or more counts, that he vacates that guilty verdict?
Yeah, this is the point. The judge has not ruled on this motion,
right.
So I kind of say to myself, well, Judge, what are you waiting for? Because the jury may be coming back with a verdict. But you got to remember, the verdict is not finalized technically in most states, and I assume Wisconsin as well, until the judge signs a thing called the judgment of conviction. If there is that guilty verdict, I think it is at that point in time the judge is going to handle these motions and could potentially vacate that verdict.
Joseph Rosenbaum. We, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the second count of the information, Richard McGinnis, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty. As to the fifth count of the information, Gage Grosskreutz, we, the jury, find the defendant Kyle H. Rittenhouse not guilty.
And what this jury came out and said was he wasn't the one that was attacking them. They were the ones that were attacking him. If anything, the state's own witnesses indicated that when Rittenhouse moved the weapon and somebody backed away, he put the weapon back down. When the threat was removed, he put the weapon down. When Grosskreutz came after him, he didn't shoot him when his hands were up until he took his weapon and pointed it towards his head. I told you before, this is a no-brainer of a self-defense case. And the only thing that concerns me is that this became a case about narratives as opposed to facts. And that is the reason why our country is in the shape it's in, especially the judicial system. We operate on law and facts, not narratives. And I've been there. I've been there when the media is reporting on stuff that's happening in the courtroom at trial. And I've gone to reporters and saying, how could you possibly have written what you've written or done what you've done? And I've literally been told, well, it didn't fit the narrative my editors wanted.
I want to read this, what also the former governor of New York, Andy Cuomo, had to say. And you want to talk about liberal politicians recklessly, irresponsibly trying to fuel rage and distrust in this verdict. Here's what Andy Cuomo had to say as he gasped for relevancy. Today's verdict is a stain on the soul of America and sends a dangerous message about who and what values our justice system was designed to protect. We must stand unified in rejecting supremacist vigilantism and with one voice say, this is not who we are. This vomitous ghoul keeps regurgitating this false narrative about a young man who today was acquitted. Bob, final word.
It's sad. And what saddens me most about it is that I'm pretty confident these people making these comments didn't even watch a wick of this trial. Whereas Mercedes, people like me and Mercedes, watched every second of this trial. Liberal lawyers, conservative lawyers, defense attorneys, prosecutors, all knew that this was going to be a difficult case for the prosecution. We all knew that's why the prosecutor asked for lesser included offenses, because he saw his case going down in flames. And the fact of the matter is, I ask this question, is this the criminal justice system we want when the lower socioeconomic defendants who are on trial every day in and day out, is this what we want? Prosecutors commenting on their right to remain silent, having narratives, calling them things, facts that don't support the evidence. Do we want this in our criminal? Hey, it's not about Kyle Rittenhouse. It's about our Constitution.